How's everybody doing? First time voting?
Yes.
How you feeling?
Good.
You guys doing okay too?
Yes, we're doing great. Kamalala.
I was going to ask who you're going to vote for, but I didn't need to.
Kamalala. Kamalala. Because my voice matters.
First time voting?
Oh, yes. I'm excited.
Congratulations, you guys.
Thank you so
You're almost there. Come on, Rachel. I'll show you all the way to the back of the line here. I was saying 500,000 people are going to show up, they expect, on Election Day here. As you know, this is where the Harris campaign wants to drive up the numbers to sort of counteract that T in the middle of Pennsylvania to counteract the rural votes that the Trump campaign is expected to get.
When it comes to a lot of the young women that we've been talking to, reproductive rights is huge. It's a big, big driver. It's a lot of the conversation that we're hearing.
Big thing, of course, is the gender gap. And I want to say we finally do have these numbers in now on the most important issue. Look at that in bright pink there. 36% of voters say the most important issue to them is the state of democracy, not the economy as the top issue. That is right there at number 2 at 30%, the economy. Abortion, 14%, followed by immigration. Chuck?
Immigration's where? Think about it. Just take a step back here, okay? Look at those top 4 issues again. We know what the number 1 and number 2 issues have been for Donald Trump this election season.
The economy and immigration.
Correct. Add that together, okay? Add up together state of democracy and abortion. It's just, I'm being a little simplistic here, but already, if this, and again, one of the things that I want to warn people is that there has been a tradition in these exit polls
I was just
that
going to
they
say, you're
skew
doing
a little
it.
left.
That's right.
The first wave skews a little left.
And sometimes
and
the top issue can become the second top issue.
And it has happened to us in previous elections. So we absolutely want to, this is little grains of salt we want to give you
That's
here.
right. We're not overreading into it, but we do want to tell you what we know as we're
directionally, if this is what this electorate is saying, you would be, and the Harris campaign will be ecstatic that that's the direction right now of where things are at.
That are going to be deep, deep red. And one of the questions coming into tonight was, would there be any slippage for Donald Trump in those counties, those core Republican Trump counties? Remember, he's trying to make up a deficit. He lost by about 12,000 votes last time. So we've got about 10 now completed of those rural, heavily Trump counties. We're talking about places where he's going to get 70, 75, 80% of the vote. In all 10 that have now been completed, Trump's vote share relative to 2020 has gone up between 1 and 3 points.
I'm just going to give a couple of everybody take a breath warnings here. Okay. One is DeKalb County is not in Georgia because of the extension of the poll hours. That is such a big county for the Democrats. We don't know what's going to happen in Georgia. I would also just reiterate, maybe you've also said this, it's like a baby blue state, I'm going to say, in that it has not been blue for a long time. It is a hard state for the Harris team. Georgia is.
One thing I think, again, we're early in the evening here. One of the things that was so striking about the public polling and the public data going into this election was that the public polling said this is the closest race that we've ever had.
Yeah.
Basically. That was the consensus view. And there was a real question about, well, maybe the public polling's wrong, and maybe it's going to miss a few points in one direction or another. We don't know at this point. It's very early in the evening. But I would say at 8:50, it's a very, very close race.
I'd say that if you are just joining us right this second at 8:52:06, and I had to summarize what's going on, no surprises. Looking back at the battleground states that we're still awaiting definitive calls in Georgia, it's too close to call. In Pennsylvania, it's too close to call. In Wisconsin, it's too close to call. In Michigan, sing it with me now, it's too close to call.
Let's be blunt. I think when you watched what Donald Trump did in 2020, what Democrats were fantasizing about was a landslide victory.
It is fairly shocking. And I don't think it's something that should make us super proud. You just think about just the last 2 weeks and the things that Donald Trump has said. If all of that gets you half of the votes,
49%.
What does it tell you? We need to really take a step back and think about what does that say about us?
I think that's right. Blue wall, baby, that was always going to be a blue wall night. Blue wall, baby, that was always going to be a blue wall night. And I think that I tried to speak a little bit to some of the fantasies, right, of a landslide victory that would erase any doubt, that would eradicate, the threat of something drawn out. I think that waiting for these blue wall states to come in because they're so close. And so I think it's going to be a late night. And I think it's the polls, I guess a slice of good news that the polls have accurately captured this dead heat.
Ari, since you were last with us, I've got nothing to report.
Well, the crowd here is still large, is still loud, but a little bit more subdued. And the word that I keep hearing, it must be some new phrase that has entered the lexicon, is the idea that people here are nauseously optimistic. Not just cautiously optimistic, but nauseously optimistic. That the real focus now is on that blue wall in the Midwest. They knew that this was going to be a long night and that it was going to be a real nail-biter, and it appears that that is exactly what we're looking at right now.
We've been saying for weeks, says Ms. O'Malley Dillon, quote, that this race might not be called tonight. Those of you who were around in 2020 know this well. It takes time for all the votes to be counted. All the votes will be counted. That is how our system works. What we do know is this race is not going to come into focus until the early morning hours.
Part of the objective of this email is to say to the people on the team, hang in there, guys. Like, it's not over. We're still getting votes in. We still need to keep talking to people, keep people in lines, tell your grandma it's going to be okay. That's part of the objective of an email like that.
Where Hazleton is, that's a majority, almost 70% Hispanic city. We now have all the vote in Luzerne County. Donald Trump is going to win this by a little bit more than 21 points. Compare this to 4 years ago, it was 14. Theme, but it's important. Trump's gains with Hispanic voters. You're absolutely seeing it here in Luzerne County. He's going to win this by more than 20 votes. That's a significant jump for him. His campaign said he was going to do that. They did do that here. We also saw him make those gains in Lackawanna County right next door earlier tonight.
NBC News now projects that in the battleground state of Georgia in the presidential race, Donald Trump has prevailed. That puts the electoral map at Donald Trump with 246 electoral votes and Kamala Harris at 189 electoral votes. And this is a big one. The Republican Party will control the United States Senate. Live from Howard University in Washington, D.C.
Good evening, HU. We still have votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted. So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. Thank you all.
A short and to-the-point statement from Cedric Richmond, the Harris campaign co-chair, speaking to what is still a considerable crowd at Howard University in Washington, D.C. You now see them turn as one to start to leave the grounds.
The evening was getting increasingly somber as people realized what this map is looking like. At what point they turned off the TV set and just piped up the music because the room was starting to get increasingly somber.
You know, we always knew it was going to be down to the blue wall, and the blue wall is still uncalled at this point. But it sounds like the Harris campaign is sort of keeping things tight in terms of whether or not they're going to string people along into thinking this is going to happen.
What they went to that venue tonight hoping to see and witness was a historic election of Kamala Harris to the presidency. Was the end of the Trump era as they knew it. And so we don't know the outcome yet, but that is not what they are receiving, and they are being told to go home and wait till tomorrow.
And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. She had every prominent celebrity voice. You could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true of Africa.
And I've gotten people from Western Europe who are extraordinarily alarmed and terrified. Extraordinarily alarmed and terrified.
NBC News now projects that that presidential contest has been won by Donald Trump. Let's watch as Trump takes the stage in Palm Beach, Florida, with former First Lady Melania Trump, his wife, at his side, and his son, Barron, his youngest child, addressing his supporters.
Thank you very much. Wow.
I just have to jump. Steve Kornacki, I just have to jump in. And you've been predicting this. We've been waiting for it. And we do have some breaking news from the decision desk. NBC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House as this country's 47th president. That news is, to say the least, a lot to digest. I understand that personally. After he lost 4 years ago, he refused to accept the outcome and incited a violent insurrection on our nation's capital. He's campaigned while facing criminal indictments related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 results, and he's run as a convicted felon. During this campaign, he has also promised to essentially be an authoritarian leader, to use power like no American president ever has before, and wield that power to go after his political enemies. This is a man who's also bragged about overturning Roe v. Wade and stripping away women's bodily autonomy. He's promised to conduct mass deportations to crack down on the rights of millions of Americans. Donald Trump is an anti-democratic force, but he's just been elected democratically in our country. And here's what might be the hardest part to hear, but we have to talk about and we have to say, and it is a hard part to digest for all of us. But we have to be honest about what we saw in this election. Donald Trump was elected by expanding his support over a number of key groups that we've been digging into this night, all night tonight, as we anticipated where this was headed, and I know we're going to dig into it throughout the course of the day today. And there will be a lot of time spent on how and why he won and what this will mean for the country over the next 4 years and beyond. But in this moment, it's also important to remember that our democracy is not built around one person or one job. And I have every confidence that pro-democracy forces in this country will continue to stand up and make their voices heard. That's what we saw after 2016 as well. Some of those voices will be governors, some of them will be elected officials, some will be institutions and organizations standing up for rights and standing up for women's bodily autonomy and standing up for our climate. Some will be citizens, and many of you sitting at home right now digesting this news right now, some of them will be you. I wish I had better news for my daughter later this morning. I know Tim Miller and I were talking about this earlier, when she and so many others wake up to this news. I wish I could have called her and told her that the first woman president had just been elected.